والسلام علي يوم ولدت ويوم أموت ويوم أبعث حيا.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Last time we stopped by verse number 71 of Surah Al-Kahf. Inshallah, we'll proceed today from that up to verse number 82. يلا باشمهندس.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
فانطلقا حتى
إذا ركبا في السفينة خرقها قال أخرقتها لتغرق أهلها لقد جئت شيئا إمرا. قال ألم أقل إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا.
لن تستطيع. We have two taps followed by a ta. You have to really pronounce each of them very subtly. لن تستطيع.
قال ألم أقل إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا.
نعم.
قال لا تؤاخذني بما نسيت ولا ترهقني من أمري عسرا.
فانطلقا
حتى إذا لقيا غلاما فقتله قال أقتلت نفسا زكية بغير نفس لقد جئت شيئا نكرا. قال ألم أقل لك إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا.
Very well done. MashaAllah. Is it Taha? Yes. قرية استطعنا استطعنا. Excellent. بكي. No, أما السفينة. Continue.
أما السفينة فكانت لمساكين يعملون في البحر فأردت أن أعيبها وكان وراءهم ملك يأخذ كل سفينة غصبا. وأما الغلام فكان أبواه مؤمنين فخشينا أن يرهقهما طغيانا وكفرا فأردنا أن يبدلهما ربهما خيرا منه زكاة وأقرب رحما. وأما الجدار فكان لغلامين يتيمين في المدينة وكان تحته كنز لهما وكان أبوهما صالحا فأراد ربك أن يبلغا أشدهما ويستخرجا كنزهما رحمة من ربك وما فعلته عن أمري ذلك تأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا.
Very good. ما شاء الله. أيام فانطلقا لقيا غلاما
حتى إذا لقيا غلاما فقتله قال أقتلت نفسا زكية بغير نفس لقد جئت شيئا نكرا قال ألم أقل لك إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا.
Great. يلا يا عمرو.
قال إن سألتك عن شيء بعدها فلا تصاحبني قد بلغت من لدني عذرا فانطلقا حتى إذا أتيا أهل قرية استطعما أهلها فأبوا أن يضيفوهما فوجدا فيها جدارا يريد أن ينقض فأقامه قال لو شئت لاتخذت عليه أجرا قال هذا فراق بيني وبينك سأنبئك بتأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا
ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا.
سأنبئك بتأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا
ما لم yes you're right sorry يلا يا
أما السفينة فكانت مساكين يعملون في البحر فأردت أن أعيبها وكان وراءهم ملك يأخذ كل سفينة غصبا وأما الغلام
فكان أبواه
مؤمنين فخشينا أن يرهقهما طغيانا وكفرا فأردنا أن
يبدلهما
ربهما خيرا منه زكاة وأقرب رحما وأما الجدار فكان لغلامين يتيمين في المدينة وكان تحته كنز لهما
وكان أبوهما
صالحا فأراد ربك أن يبلغا
أشدهما
ويستخرجا كنزهما رحمة من ربك وما فعلته عن أمري ذلك تأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا.
Very good يا أحمد ما شاء الله. هذه تستطيع صحيح. Do you have any sisters who want to recite? No one is here? Okay. I don't know. If anyone was interested in reciting, you're welcome. If not, okay. So we had several lessons that we've learned from the previous episode in Musa and Al-Khadr story, especially to do with knowledge seeking. We've emphasized commitment. We've seen that in Musa's interest and, willingness to learn. And we had a discussion on consistency as two key conditions of knowledge seeking. We've also discussed the two key diseases that afflict knowledge seekers. One is fatigue, and the second one is forgetfulness. And the fact that, again, consistency and commitment are the two key healers of those two key diseases. Now that Moses has met Al-Khadr, the Quran starts to really narrate what happened after they met each other. We have three scenarios that had happened between Moses and Al-Khadr. We've said before that some scholars believe that Al-Khadr was a prophet, and others believe that he was just someone who was given a divine knowledge, but he was not a prophet as such. I think there is a space for both interpretations. But the Quran is not clear on, the nature of his relationship with Allah. But what the Quran is very clear on is that he was a very special man to Allah. He was given a very specific knowledge, that is the ilm al-ladunni. We said that we have two types of knowledge, the immediate knowledge and the mediated knowledge. Immediate knowledge is a knowledge that Allah throws into our hearts, perhaps on the basis of one's devotion to Allah and this and that. It's called al-ilm al-ladunni. And there is the mediated knowledge. That's the one that you acquire and you spend time on and that. And we've looked into that conversation that had happened between Moses and Al-Khadr. Musa reminding Al-Khadr that Al-Khadr reminded Moses that it would be really difficult for him to make sense of what is going to be done. And Musa gives the promises that he will really be up to it, inshallah. Al-Bukhari gives us some context. He says, فَانْطَلَقَ يَمْشِيَانِ عَلَى سَاحِلِ الْبَحْرِ لَيْسَ لَهُمَا سَفِينَةٌ. So both of them, after they met, they walked along the beach, on the beach. لَيْسَ لَهُمَا سَفِينَةٌ. And they had no ship. فَمَرَّتْ بِهِمَا سَفِينَةٌ. As they were walking, a ship passed by. فَكَلَّمُوهُمْ أَنْ يَحْمِلُوهُمَا. They asked them if they can really carry them so that they may cross to the other side of the sea. فَعُرِفَ الْخَضْرِ. They knew who Al-Khadr was. فَحَمَلُوهُمَا بِغَيْرِ نَوْلٍ. So they decided that they will pick them, they will carry them for free. So they got into the ship. And we've said as they got into the ship, there came a sparrow or a bird that dipped its beak into the sea, which triggered Al-Khadr to say to Moses, ما نقص علمي وعلمك من علم الله إلا كنقرة هذا العصفور في البحر. My knowledge and your knowledge combined together, they decrease nothing of Allah's knowledge, except in the way this bird has decreased of the sea. Now they are with those guys in the ship, on the ship. The Quran does not tell us, the Quran says, فَانْطَلَقَا حَتَّى إِذَا رَكِبَا فِي السَّفِينَةِ خَرَقَهَا. They both, انطلقا, they literally moved forward, they moved on. حَتَّى إِذَا رَكِبَا فِي السَّفِينَةِ خَرَقَهَا. As they, now, the guy we had last time, Yusha, Moses' assistant, he disappears. Now, we don't know where he is. The Quran is absolutely silent on that. The Quran speaks of two people who went onto the ship, but it is absolutely silent on that guy. Did he go back? Did he continue? Did he wait for them? No idea. So they went into the ship. The Quran says, حَتَّى إِذَا رَكِبَا فِي السَّفِينَةِ خَرَقَهَا. He made a hole in it. The narration in Bukhari says, فَعَمَدَ الْخَضِرُ إِلَى لَوْحٍ مِّنْ أَلْوَاحِ السَّفِينَةِ فَنَزَعَهُ. So Al-Khadr, he set out he actually pulled out one of the planks of the ship. قال أخرقتها لتغرق أهلها. Musa alayhi salam forgot the condition and he could not remain silent. أخرقتها لتغرق أهلها. Did you make this hole by way of wanting them to drown? These guys, they have been good to us. لقد جئت شيئا إمرا. What a really strange thing that you've done. You see, something imr is like very strange, very weird. Someone was done good to you. At least you either, just be good to them. Just don't harm them, at least. One of the most basic human laws. We have natural laws, but we also have moral laws. Moral laws that humans agree upon without, Whether you are cultured, civilized, uncivilized, these are things that are agreed upon. Right? If someone has done good to you, at least you don't harm them. Everyone agrees on it. Right? So apparently Al-Khadir is actually going against that basic human condition, basic human moral law. And Al-Khadir immediately reminds Moses of the condition. قال ألم أقل إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا. He said, did I not tell you that you won't be able to bear with me? Musa remembers. قال لا تؤاخذني بما نسيت. Said, don't take me to account for what because I forgot, really. ولا ترهقني. Perhaps we're talking about days, maybe. I don't think this had happened in one day, Allahu A'lam. ولا ترهقني من أمري عسرا. Don't make things really too hard for me. Al-Khadir says, okay. فانطلقا حتى إذا لقيا غلاما فقتله. They moved forward and they came across a little boy. And Al-Khadir, as he saw this boy, he literally killed him. فقتله. In Bukhari, that gives us some more details. He says, فإذا بغلام يلعب مع الغلمان. There is a little boy, maybe aging 10, 12 or something. أخذ الخضر برأسه من أعلاه فاقتلع رأسه بيده. That he took him from his head and he literally separated his head from his body. The Quran uses the word just فقتله, he killed him. قال أقتلت نفسا زكية بغير نفس. Again, Moses can't control that, can't control himself. Says, أقتلت نفسا زكية بغير نفس. How could you kill an innocent soul, an innocent, pure? Zakiya is it's a little boy, his soul is an innocent soul. Right? It's a pure soul. Plus, he hasn't killed anyone. بغير نفس. لقد جئت شيئا نكرا. You have done something that is literally blameworthy, and that invites my condemnation. Nukr is something that I have to condemn this. It comes from, the word munkar. Right? I can't remain silent. And here, Musa does not say, I forgot. He says, I know this time I haven't forgotten. But I can't remain silent. That this is this has to be condemned. Al-Khadir says, قال ألم أقل لك إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا. He repeats the same thing but adds one more word. Did I not say to you? He adds the word لك. أقل لك. I mean you. So we become more emphatic. إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا. You won't be able to bear with me. قال إن سألتك عن شيء بعدها فلا تصاحبني. Now, there is something that you can read into this. So much can be read into that. Like now, Musa says, I can't really take that. It's not just a question of me being less patient or something, but this is too much. I can't handle this. Right? He does not mention that he forgot this time. إن سألتك عن شيء بعدها فلا تصاحبني. You have your excuse, maybe you go with your knowledge, I don't know. It's really too difficult for me. إن سألتك عن شيء بعدها فلا تصاحبني. If I ask you, he doesn't know what is going to happen. I don't know, he's going to kill someone else or something. What type of knowledge is that? Right? You can read that into the Quran is silent in the details. The Quran does not say he forgot this time. And Moses is not apologizing this time in the way he was apologizing the first time, because the first case was not very, he caused a little harm, a little damage to that ship. It could still continue. But this time you've killed an innocent soul. That questions the whole program. What type of teacher are you? إن سألتك عن شيء بعدها, if I ever ask you about anything after that, فلا تصاحبني. Then, you don't have to really be a friend of mine. قد بلغت من لدني عذرا. You have, put up with enough from my side. فانطلقا. They moved forward. حتى إذا أتيا أهل قرية استطعما أهلها فأبوا أن يضيفوهما. They passed by a village or a city. قرية in our imagination today would translate literally as village. But back in those days, it was not necessarily the case. It could mean a city. Right? استطعما أهلها. They asked its people for a food, for hospitality. But they were denied this hospitality. فأبوا أن يضيفوهما. You may ask, like, how could someone ask for hospitality? Isn't hospitality just more of an optional thing? You don't ask for it. Back in those days, hospitality was a really big thing. And it should actually. I mean, the Quran speaks in so many places of hospitality. Isn't it? Hospitality is a big thing. The Prophet ﷺ actually had a massive statement on that. مَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيُكْرِمْ ضَيْفَهُ. So if you truly believe in Allah and the last day, you have to be generous to your guest. Right? So apparently it was not seen, it should not be seen as an optional thing. Like the fact that they asked for it, they must have run out of food. Asking for it means that apparently was a convention that if you are a traveler or something, you need to ask for that. And you can't be refused, you can't be denied that. If you read the Quran, if you read the Sunnah, you may come with this conclusion. That actually some scholars says, if you pass by a certain people as a traveler and they don't really host you, that allows you to actually take things actually without their own permission. If you are on the verge of death or something. There's a hadith in Bukhari that says, a companion says, Ya Rasulullah, إِنَّكَ تَبْعَثُنَا فَنَنْزِلَ بِقَوْمٍ لَا يَقْرُونَ. That sometimes you send us, in missions or expeditions or whatever, فَنَنْزِلُ بِقَوْمٍ, and that will pass by people who won't really be hospitable to us. The Prophet says to them, إِن لَمْ يَفْعَلُوا فَخُذُوا مِنْهُمْ حَقَّ الضَّيْفِ. If they don't, it's your right, it's a duty upon them to give you it's your right, as in you ask for it. But this is like one of the forgotten traditions today. So they were denied. And there is the famous, the father of the whole thing of hospitality is Ibrahim alayhi salam. Surah Al-Dhariyat talks about this. وَهَلْ أَتَاكَ حَدِيثُ ضَيْفِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ الْمُكْرَمِينَ. And the famous story of him hosting a guy, was it one of the worshippers of fire, that Ibrahim alayhi salam would often, actually he made a habit of eating on a daily basis with someone, with a guest on a daily basis, would invite a guest to eat with him, right? And he would often begin eating as normal. A prophet would begin his eating with Bismillah. He asked the guy to say Bismillah. He said, no, I don't worship Allah. I don't know, it was a Zoroastrian or something, a fire worshipper or something. Ibrahim said, no, I can't share my meal with you. The man left, and he left Ibrahim alayhi salam, and he moved on. The author, the report says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blamed Ibrahim for that. So I've been feeding for 70 years. And he doesn't worship me, he doesn't believe in me. And that's how I am doing. And you can't feed him for one day. Allah reproached, Allah blamed Ibrahim for that, alayhi salam. So that hospitality thing is a really big thing. And it treats so many moral diseases that we have. Chief amongst these is الشح. وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. To put others first before yourself. Right? The Quran says, if you are saved from your own greed, then you are a truly successful person. So don't be surprised of Moses and Al-Khadr asking those people for food. In a believing culture, this is a duty. Today, if I pass by your place as a traveler, I mean, I can't ask for that. I would be seen as someone who is not really well-mannered and this and that. Back then, actually, they would host you for 3 days. You know, the famous story in Bukhari again, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, when he had Abu Dharr al-Ghifari was one of the early converts to Islam. Abu Dharr al-Ghifari came all the way. He sent his brother first to ask about the Prophet ﷺ in Mecca. You know, he sent his brother. Qabilat Ghifar was one of the largest and the most influential tribes back then. We're talking about like the early Meccan Islam. So Abu Dharr al-Ghifari sent his brother. He said, you know, I've heard of this man named Muhammad. I want some more information about him. Go and ask. The man came to Mecca. He hasn't heard much. He asked a couple of people. He came back to his brother. He said, سمعت رجلا يأمر بالخير وينهى عن الشر. What I've heard is just someone who, you know, speaks well, asking people to be good and to avoid falling into, you know, bad stuff. Abu Dharr said, إنك لم تشفني من الخبر. This is not enough for me. I want more than that. He decides to travel to Mecca. He comes to Mecca and he happens to meet Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu hosted him without asking even him why he's here. That's what was one of the etiquettes. You don't ask a guest until after 3 days. So you host a guest for 3 days, and after that you may ask, why are you here? 1 day passed, 2 days passed, 3 days passed. And Ali asks him, why are we here? He said, I'm here to inquire about this person named Muhammad. I've heard of him. Ali ibn Talib says, إِنَّكَ قَدْ رَشَدْتَ. You've really made the right, you are on the right track. هذا وجهي إليه. I'm going now to see him. فاتبعني. Follow me, but don't walk with me. You see, this is it tells you like how difficult the situation was. Ali says to the guy, to Abu Dharr, don't walk with me, otherwise people will, you know, now we are being persecuted. We don't want us to be like a center of attention, people's attention. فإني إن رأيت أحدا أخافه عليك وقفت كأني أصلح نعلي. You know, if I see someone that I really, who is, you know, who may, you know, put us in risk or something, I will stop. I pretend to be fixing my shoes, and this is for you as a sign to know, to be cautious here. Then the story goes, Abu Dharr comes to the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Dharr accepts Islam. The point I'm trying to make is a really interesting story, by the way. Maybe another point we can, you know, narrate the whole story. The point is, a man staying in Ali's house 3 days, Ali is not even asking why he's here. This is his right. This is the culture we're talking about. فأبوا أن يضيفوهم. They refuse to really be hospitable to them. فوجد فيها جدارا يريد أن ينقض فأقامه. So they found a wall that was on the verge, or on the point of, you know, falling down. يريد أن ينقض فأقامه. قال له شيء فأقامه. He repaired. Al-Khadr repaired this. And here apparently Moses is not participating in anything. He's not even helping him. See, the Quran doesn't say فأقامه. They haven't fixed the wall together. No, you know, Musa now is being very, very cautious. I'm not even participating in a good action that you do. فأقامه. قال لو شئت يعني لاتخذت عليه أجرا. You know what? You could have asked for some payment for that. قال هذا فراق بيني وبينك. He is not even asking. Musa is not even asking. Musa is very surprised. قال هذا فراق بيني وبينك. This brings an end to our friendship. No, that's Al-Khadr, of course Al-Khadr. سأنبئك بتأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا. This is the time for me to really interpret, to explain to you the weird stuff that you've seen. أما السفينة فكانت لمساكين يعملون في البحر. As for the ship, it belonged to a group of people, a group of masakin, very people who have a very basic, they can barely survive. Yeah. Miskin is often, especially in the Shafi'i fiqh, they treat the miskin as someone who is like in a higher position, is in a better condition than the faqir. Faqir is someone who doesn't have the basic needs. But al-miskin is he can survive in the sense that these guys, the Quran identifies them as masakin, and yet they owned a ship. So they can barely survive on the stuff they have. فكانت لمساكين يعملون في البحر. This ship was owned by a group of very poor people, and they used to work in the sea, as fishermen. فأردت أن أعيبها, and I wanted to really cause some damage to it. This damage was not, it wouldn't cause the ship to drown, but it would not look to be, a proper ship. Because there is a king, وَكَانَ وَرَاءَهُمْ مَلِكٌ يَأْخُذُ كُلَّ سَفِينَةٍ غَصْبًا. And there is a king who's literally after every good, every decent ship. When he basically confiscates people's properties. If this king gets to see that this is not really a good ship, we would leave it to them. Right? So in reality, I've done them good. I did not cause any damage. That's the first riddle, the first puzzle is solved. Right? وَكَانَ وَرَاءَهُمْ مَلِكٌ. وَرَاءَهُمْ in Arabic, it's one of those words that could mean opposite things. So it could be understood to mean ahead of them there is a king who's waiting for them, waiting for anyone who comes with a perfect ship, he takes that ship. Wara could mean amam, actually could mean in front of them there is a king who does this. Could also mean behind them, someone who's running after them. So it could mean amam, it could mean khalf as well. يأخذ كل سفينة غصبا. He doesn't take things with people's consent, he just confiscates. وأما الغلام فكان أبواه مؤمنين. As for the little boy, he had two good, believing, faithful parents. فخشينا أن يرهقهما طغيانا وكفرا. And we were afraid that this little boy will cause them, طغيانا could mean, give them a rich life. And a life that is full of ingratitude and kufr and all those evil associations. فأردنا أن يبدلهما ربهما خيرا منه زكاة وأقرب رحمة. And we actually wanted that your Lord may substitute them with another boy, another child who is more compassionate and more righteous to them. Okay. وأما الجدار, as for the wall, فكان الغلامين يتيمين في. Of course, the question that arises here is, let's discuss this after this. وأما الجدار, as for the wall, it was owned, it belonged to two orphan boys, little boys, in the city. وكان تحته كنز لهم. And underneath this wall, there was a treasure that was, buried for them in the future. وكان apparently, obviously the dad had passed away. وكان أبوهما صالح, he was a righteous man. فأراد ربك أن يبلغا أشدهما. If these guys, they get to discover this treasure, they might not be able to really maintain that, keep that treasure. فأراد ربك أن يبلغا أشدهما. Allah, you load, wealth that they reach the maturity first, so that they may be able to extract or to get the treasure on their own. رحمة من ربك, out of your God's mercy. So Allah has been looking after them even before they reach their maturity. وَمَا فَعَلْتُهُ عَنْ أَمْرِي. And I didn't do this out of my own desire. Allah is behind all this. I'm just doing what He asks. ذَلِكَ تَأْوِيلُ مَا لَمْ تَسْتَعْ عَلَيْهِ صَبْرًا. This is really the explanation of the stuff that you weren't able to bear with. The Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said, وَدِدْنَا يَرْحَمُ اللَّهُ مُوسَى. May Allah have mercy upon Moses. لَوَدِدْنَا لَوْ صَبَرَ حَتَّى يُقَصَّ عَلَيْنَا مِنْ أَمْرِهِمَا. We wish that he had been more patient for us to really learn more about this. So many lessons can be learned from this. But a couple of questions we may ask, really, or may raise. Even if we know things, as in, first of all, here we have Musa al-Khadr alayhi salam doing things intervening in things that are beyond his control, as in, even if the ship, even if there is a king who's confiscating ships and this and that, does this allow you to damage people's stuff? If you can guess the future of this kid, and you know that he will cause, trouble to his parents and that, does this allow you to kill him? Even if the people have been not hospitable to you, does this allow you to really do things in their own properties? The clue that gives us the answer, of course, we're not allowed. If we are reflecting and trying to draw comparisons to us today, the Quran says, وَمَا فَعَلْتُهُ عَنْ أَمْرِي. I didn't do this out of my own desire. I did this because I was asked to. We're talking about revelation. So, none of you guys should do this, right? So, وَمَا فَعَلْتُهُ عَنْ أَمْرِي. I was not executing my own wishes or something. Okay. So many things can be learned from this passage. On top of them, one comes the question of simply the question of morality. When we are faced, sometimes when we think of ethics, we often think of ethics in those, black and white thinking. Sometimes things are much more complicated than that. As in, Musa alayhi salam is being very, rightly critical. Allah is telling us things are much deeper than what Moses think in this situation. You may also draw educational lessons. Like I'm thinking of something along the lines of collaboration, the value of collaboration. Imagine the amount of knowledge that we as learners, as knowledge seekers, could benefit from collaboration. Musa alayhi salam and Al-Khadr collaborating with each other. That is something the Prophet ﷺ had wished himself. I wish they collaborated even more, because this is a form of collaboration. Musa alayhi salam, yes, Musa is being more of a student here, and Al-Khadr is more of a teacher. But to us, both are prophets, both are teachers, and to us, they both are teachers. So that's for us a form of collaboration. Leaving the Prophet ﷺ with us, to really leave us with this statement, وَدِدْنَا لَوْ صَبَرَ حَتَّى يُقَصَّ عَلَيْنَا مِنْ أَمْرِهِمَا. What happens when two different perspectives meet up? We, as humans, collaboration is really, really difficult. And especially in academic stuff, and in life in general, like not just in academia, like anyone who does business would know this for a fact. One of the most difficult things is having a partner in business. Collaborate with someone on a paper or writing a book or something. Can be one of the most daunting. If you don't have patience, the thing that gets most repeated in this passage is patience. You need patience to collaborate. And I have witnessed this in so many situations in my life, academically speaking, and life scenarios, really difficult. But the value of collaboration definitely surpasses the ones of individual-based stuff. Two minds collaborating together, combining expertise and this and that. That's why teamwork becomes a big thing in today's world, right? Teamwork is one of the key questions you get asked in interviews, and do you work? How good are you in terms of working with the team and this and that? It's mainly because the productivity becomes much more in quantity as well as in quality when people collaborate, right? And here we have again two types of knowledge merging. Sometimes, normally we collaborate with people that see eye to eye with us on things. You would often, pick someone of the same school, same way of thinking. In this very case, we have two people, with completely different worldviews. As in, probably the only thing that unites them is the belief in God. Beyond that, here is al-Mashriq wal-Maghrib. Someone thinks in a certain way, Moses' way, and Al-Khadir's way. And there is something that the Quran is silent on. How did Musa react when things were explained to him? Right? I can't imagine Musa alayhi salam being very, regretting the fact that he spoke. Now that Al-Khadir's integrity is not being impugned, he's not being questioned. I'm just imagining, the Quran is silent on this, the Hadith is silent on this. We have no reports mentioning what happened after that. When things were explained to Moses, what was his reaction? Again, I imagine him being very regretful of the fact that he spoke. So collaboration really deepens our understanding of things, broadens our views with people you agree with people that you disagree with, at least, of course, collaborating with people that at least have the same ethical paradigm. Honesty, integrity, and those concepts, you can't compromise on those. But with ways of thinking, we do have different ways of thinking that we can really put up with. But you can't put up with someone who's lying. There are things that you can't compromise. Otherwise, in terms of ways of thinking, we as humans, our knowledge is partial anyway. We have very partial information. So if I collaborate with someone who disagrees with me, actually, there is much I would learn because I'm being biased. I have my own prejudices and this and that. I might not have looked at this subject from that person's view. So for us to collaborate, I will get to understand a different perspective. Here is Musa is a good example of this. But what it takes is patience. So the value of collaboration is a big thing here. And that collaboration is not, you see, it comes as a result of active learning, learning through life situations. It's not like that Musa, when you would imagine when Allah tells Musa alayhi salam, that there is this teacher, the one who knows more than you do, go and sit with him. Musa alayhi salam goes, studies with Al-Khadr. That's what we would expect. It doesn't happen this way. What he does is he gives him actual life lessons. This is how Allah, showing him how Allah intervenes in real life problems. It's where the theory, gets in contact with the practice. He will have ethics being, applied into real life situations. The ship, let's discuss now, morally speaking, what you have done. Because you damaged this, the guy explains, Khadr explains, I only did this because of that. With the little boy, again, things could have been much more easier if Al-Khadr says to Musa alayhi salam, you know what, in situations, sometimes you have to, you might accept the little damage for the sake of greater good. Think of the ship thing. There is a greater good that I'm doing this for. Musa would have learned this easily, right? He could have said to him, this little boy, in the very beginning, he will, when there is a boy that is, his future will jeopardize that of the legacy of his parents and this and that entitles you to do this or to do that. It doesn't happen this way. It happens as a real life experience. And that, again, touches upon the fact that, how faith and how our convictions, when they encounter realities, how difficult it becomes. Sometimes when outsiders to a certain problem, things are so clear to us, right? Once you get into the problem, you know how complex it is, right? In Egypt we have a proverb that I often quote. This proverb, it says, "Illa al-barra awam." If someone is on the beach, he is not in the sea, he can make all the claims that I'm a really good swimmer. As long as you are on the beach, you haven't really tried to get into the sea, the actual sea, right? Can claim that. But the one who is inside really knows what it means, especially when there are waves or tornadoes or whatever. So that is a different type of learning. For you, because again, it speaks to us again, when we are, think of a friend or a brother or whatever who is in a difficult situation. It's very easy for us to become judgmental. Not just judgmental, but we also idealize ourselves. You know what? If I am in that position, I wouldn't have done what he did. If I am this, I wouldn't. But you're not in that position. You don't know the context. You don't know what he's going through, what she's going through. So here is again faith and life in practice. How difficult things are. It's not always as clear as we would like life to be. Sometimes it gets really, really complicated. Ayham shared with me the other day, like a piece of wisdom that says actually that Musa alayhi salam himself did the stuff that he was being critical of Al-Khadr of. Think of the time when he unintentionally killed that Egyptian guy who was having, the story mentioned in Surah Al-Qasas. Killed that guy, that Egyptian guy who was, fighting against his fellow Israelite. He didn't mean it. But the case is the case. A man gets killed. Right? Another situation, Musa alayhi salam doing good to the two ladies in the same surah. The two daughters of Shu'aib. When they were trying to get water for the sheep and they couldn't. Musa alayhi salam comes and helps them. He didn't know them. Right? Yes, they haven't done him any evil, but they haven't done anything good either. But you are doing something good because of who you are, not because of someone else's reaction or something. What was the other example? Yeah. Uh-huh. What is it exactly? Uh-huh. Let me get that. Yeah. The third one actually is when Musa alayhi salam, indeed, when his mom, when Allah أوحينا إلى أم موسى فإذا خفت عليه فألقيه في اليم ولا تخافي ولا تحزني. If you are really fearful of his future, just put him in the sea. Allah says, I will look after him. Just throw him. What we see in those scenarios, I know it's not the exact analogy, but we see Musa alayhi salam being put in the same situation. That is to reflect on us. When we think of Musa or Khadr situation, we somehow distance ourselves from this story, as if these are extreme cases. They won't happen to us. And this is the moment when you really minimize the amount of learning that you may draw from the Quran. These situations do happen in our lives. It doesn't have to be like as blatant as you want it. You just need to be alert to the signs that happen. Yes, with this case, it's a very severe test that Musa alayhi salam was subjected to. But again, this story is so significant. It's a central story, mainly because it relates to us. We are put often in situations where we don't really know how to respond. Again, if you are out of those situations, you know what is right or is wrong in a very simple way. When you are in the situation, having a real struggle, a real life, you are the one who's facing the challenge. It becomes a different story. Right? Of course, other lessons may be learned. Maybe I would invite you guys to contribute to this discussion. Maybe I'll leave you, I'll give you 2 minutes or so to reflect on this passage. Maybe if you can share any comments or reflections you may have. So I've shared 2 key ones. One is to do with the value of collaboration, even with the people that we disagree with. And I mentioned the fact that the value of, when you get taught something through practical education, not just theoretical education. We all know the value of patience, the value of this, the value of that. Did you experience this? That's a different thing. Yeah. ChatGPT. Cheat GPT. Okay. Any points you want to share? No questions, please. Reflections. I'm happy to share others until revelation comes to you guys.
Yeah, as he said, I think perspective is a construct of knowledge. If you don't have enough knowledge, or I think what it means here is, even if you have your own perspective, don't become so fixated on something. If you don't have enough knowledge about it, that's to me, this is the main theme here. But also another thing that came across to me was Al-Khidr's response to each of the incidents, each of them. So the first one, he says, فَأَرَدْتُ أَنْ أَعِبَهُ, I wanted to damage it. And the other one, he says, فَخَشِينَا, we feared. I wanted to ask you, so why the second was فَخَشِينَا? Usually Allah would use it, the tafkhim, and it's understood.
Do you mean who is speaking here?
Yeah, who is it? Is it Al-Khidr? And if it's Al-Khidr, it seems like it's Al-Khidr is part of a group of soldiers. Where,
That's a good question.
I thought
Inshallah, keep it after the reflections.
yeah, maybe.
Sure. But that's a good question.
The third response was فأراد ربك. The third one is فأراد ربك. The first one was him.
Yeah.
The second one, we. The third one, Allah. That's what you see.
Sure. I mean, if you don't have any immediate reflections, I'm happy to engage with this. Okay. The most dominant interpretation to this would say, with the first one, Al-Khadr attributed this to himself out of having a sense of adab with Allah, a sense of mannerism, as in not ascribing an act of apparently it looks like an evil action. You wouldn't ascribe it to Allah, but you would rather ascribe it to yourself. With the last one, فَأَرَادَ رَبُّكَ أَنْ يَبْلُغَ أَشْدَهُ, because it's a very positive association. Attributed this to Allah. The one in the middle is an interesting one. It could actually mean the royal we, as it's used in Arabic, royal we as in فأردنا, as in Al-Khadr speaking of himself in the royal we. Sometimes we use it in Arabic, it gets used quite often. The question that might get raised, like why does Al-Khadr speak in the royal we?
Especially the first one he said
Aradtu. Indeed. Maybe because that's a. I don't think one can know for certain why is. Could be a reference to an angel, group of angels, maybe. We don't even know the reality of the figure of Al-Khadr himself. Some scholars actually say that he is still alive. Right? So we don't know much about him. Is it a group of angels maybe who were involved in that act? Perhaps. Could it be a royal? Perhaps. فأردنا أن يبدلهما ربهما. perhaps another way of looking at it, he is actually combining, he's actually taking Moses into account, as in getting Moses involved in the learning process. You know, think of a leader. Leaders wouldn't speak when they are in a partnership, they would not speak in the first pronoun. When they get something accomplished, they wouldn't speak in the first pronoun. They would rather say, you know, we did this, we did that, even though maybe he is the one who's done this or that. You know, reflecting on the idea of collaboration again, or the sense of collectivity rather than the selfish I, so to speak. Allahu Alam. Yeah.
Could it be also because, just trying to repeat it in my head again. So if he says, فَخَشَيْتُ أَنْ يُغْرِقَهُمَا, it would still be a bit arrogant tone because...
Could be. You're speaking also on the future.
Yeah.
As in, he is speaking of the future, which is in the hands of Allah. So it's
and he wouldn't say also, and he wouldn't say فَخَشَى اللَّهُ.
that exactly. I think you may read adab into it as well. As in, you're talking about the future. You can't speak in the first pronoun because it's not. As in, you can't speak using the pronoun I because it's not within your hands. You don't know. Maybe it could be he's referring to him and along with Allah, perhaps. So I think it remains an area of ambiguity, but it's a good observation though. It's a good observation. The Quran speaks, you know, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. The Quran, it's the daily basis we recite صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم, guide us to the straight path of the people that you have showed your favor or your blessings. غير المغضوب عليهم, not the one that غير المغضوب عليهم, not the ones with wrath, not the ones who are associated with wrath or with anger. Whose wrath, whose anger? Out of adab, you don't ascribe this to Allah. He could have, you know, the natural structure would have been صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير الذين غضبت عليهم, not the ones that you are at wrath with. The Quran doesn't say that. غير المغضوب عليهم. Out of, again, that sense of mannerism. Yeah. Any other reflections? Musa alayhi salam strikes me with another beautiful lesson, really, that you may identify it as his sense of adaptation. His sense of adaptation, you know. Okay, it's very easy, you know, when, again, think, Musa alayhi salam is a massive prophet, is one of the major prophets in Islam. He's at a very advanced point in his career as a prophet. His view of things is very clear. His mind is settled, his heart is clear. When you are at this stage in your life, you're not really willing enough. Normally, one is not willing to change perspectives. You become so rigid on what you know. Adaptation or adaptability is a prime value in our life today, isn't it? Someone's adaptability. We speak of adaptability as in, your capacity to cope with new changes, to adjust your own personality in accordance with the, occurring changes and vicissitudes of life. What do I do? Sometimes we become, actually most of the time, we become so rigid, especially when we are advanced in age. The Prophet ﷺ, It says, بُعِثْتُ بِالْحَنِيفِيَّةِ السَّمْحَةِ I was sent with a very simple, moderate religion. فَحَالَفُونِ الشَّبَابُ وَخَالَفُونِ الشِّيُوخِ The people who supported me, who stood by my side, were the youngsters, the new generation. As for the older ones, they were the ones who opposed me because they have lost the capacity to adapt to new ways of thinking. They have been born and raised according to a certain way of looking at the world. No space for changes. Someone who's in his 50s or 60s or something, they will find it really hard to change their perspectives. Right? When you have that sense of adaptation, it means you don't only have a sense of resilience. People, when you think of adaptation, you think of flexibility, someone who is very flexible, able to cope with changes. Think of us. Most of us are from different parts of the world, and we come here. Some of us have been born and raised here. You must have came up with ways that you may adapt with the lifestyle here, the ways of education, the lifestyles, this and that. That takes a skill. That's not easy. To adapt while maintaining your identity, who you are, that's not an easy thing. This sense of adaptability or adaptation is a big thing. Underneath adaptability, what is the opposite? Let's think of this. Okay, adaptability or adaptation is something that comes in the middle of two evils. Is a virtue that lies in between two evils. The opposite of adaptation is a middle path. The opposite of which, or on its right side, on the other end of the spectrum, you have someone, when you are presented with a new situation, with a new technique, with a new strategy, with a new lifestyle, what happens? Either you have people who respond to this with a sense of hostility, they become so hostile to it. Think of Muslims' encounter with modernity, for example, or our own situation when you are, posed or presented with a new challenge. That challenge could carry many opportunities. But there are people who are by definition opposed to any changes. They face all new things with a sense of hostility. Others, they may face it with a sense of malleability. They just accept whatever they are presented with. They don't have an identity, they don't have any essence to their lives. In the middle, you have someone who has a sense of adaptation, someone who maintains who he is. But at the very same time, you face the world with a sense of openness and open-mindedness. And my identity is not yet, certain aspects of it are fixed, but also it is not static. Our identities are not static. Our identities are dynamic in the sense that they go hand in hand with learning. There is also what is known as cognitive adaptation or adaptability. That your identity gets affected by what you know. Here we have Musa alayhi salam. Literally, this is happening here. His moral decision is changing in the light of what he knows. He's very critical on Al-Khadir on the basis of his specific knowledge. When this knowledge was expanded, he became much more accepting of Al-Khadir's position. Musa didn't say, killing is not a word in my dictionary. I don't do this. No matter what your excuses. Musa is not doing that. Adaptation literally means that. You have a sense of open-mindedness. You have a sense of resilience as well, as in I'm not compromising my beliefs easily. Musa is teaching us this. We don't reflect much on, often we think of Moses in this very story as, someone who makes most of the mistakes. But in his own mistakes, Musa is teaching us so much. He is teaching us a sense of resilience. As a student of knowledge, you should not be, when someone, you shouldn't be like a vessel, anyone who fills you with ideas and thoughts without you really grappling with those concepts. New ideas and new concepts and this and that. Give and take, challenge. Try to grapple with arguments for, arguments against. This is what Musa is teaching us. A sense of resilience. He's defending what he knows. But this defense does not make him blind. The moment he gets convinced, I'm happy to change my perspective. This is my teacher. But I'm not like a blind follower of that teacher. Right? So, adaptation carries with it a sense of resilience, but also a sense of flexibility equally. And even more than that, not just a sense of a willingness to learn. Musa obviously he came all the way from Egypt to that place to learn. So this is so obvious in his character. But also the willingness to unlearn stuff. Sometimes this becomes even more difficult than learning new things. How to unlearn old stuff that you've already settled. But I have been proven wrong. How do I get rid of this? Most of us get stuck on those. I'm being reminded of the Prophet's grandfather, Abdul Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib, he says actually to his son Ali, sorry, what is it? Ali ibn Abi Talib, what is it? His nephew. You go and follow Muhammad. For me, I'm really advanced in my age. Scholars debate whether he accepted Islam or not, and that's an ongoing discussion, right? But the fact that he could see the light in that, and he says to Ali, you know what, you are very young, you can see the end of this, but I can't. My ideas, my concepts are too settled, and I'm too advanced in age. This was the situation of so many people in his time, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not like that. He was an adaptationist in that sense, in the sense that there are certain concepts that he accepted from the pre-Islamic times, happily and easily. Being reminded of Hilf al-Fudul, which is and some sort of an allegiance that they had before Islam, that the Meccans had before Islam, to support the weak, to support the one who is oppressed. All the tribes agreed on that, and the Prophet participated in this. He actually said, after he became a prophet, he says, لو دعيت إلى مثله في الإسلام لأجبت. If I am invited to this today, I would accept. I would join, even though I disagree with him in so many things. Right? Same thing. He goes to Medina. He accepts things. He engages with that society. That sense of adaptation is as a skill, is an unbelievable skill. Very, very, very important. People fall into one of those traps, the trap of hostility. You become hostile to any new thing, or you become malleable. You become like a vessel. Everyone fills you with ideas, with thoughts, and you don't question anything. We have those two responses are very, very common. Very common. But the one who engages, gives and takes, and willing to learn, willing to unlearn, but also resilient, does not give up and does not give in easily. Musa alayhi salam teaches us all this.
Very humble.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Although his might, he humbles, he goes through this humbling experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I mentioned 3 key lessons that I draw from this. Again, 1, a sense of collaboration. What collaboration means to us today. The ways in which we can enhance our learning, and that. Also, learning with real life engagement, not just theoretical stuff. But equally, again, the sense of adaptation that Musa alayhi salam shows us. Literally from the moment he gets told, there is one who knows more than you do. He doesn't say, what, I've already made up my mind. I have my own views. I am a prophet. I am this, I am that. He says, no, I'm willing to change perspectives. I'm willing to unlearn stuff. That's a huge skill. People get defensive easily and become offensive easily as well. But to have that sense of adaptation, that skill is a rare skill. I should shut up now. Do you guys have any reflections? Yes, yeah.
I think the story kind of teaches us three types of lessons. So in the first one, the ship is damaged. So you can imagine for the ship owners, initially they think it's something bad, but maybe after a few days they realise there's this king, the ship gets saved because it's damaged. And the second one, the parents, the child gets killed. So they might think this is bad. This time it's a longer time, maybe a few years. Maybe after a few years they realise, okay, alhamdulillah, now I got this son. In the third case, the two children, orphans, they have this blessing happen to them, but they don't even know that happened. So it's three different types of blessing.
In what sense? Was the uniting thread?
They did. The first one's a short time period, a few days. The second one's a few years. The third one, a blessing. Interesting. I'm really struck by the second one in the sense that, how did the parents react to that? The only child being killed, how did they react to that? When nobody has told them, this is the case, this is the scenario. If they had known, if Allah had told them, that's a different scenario. But, I do understand sometimes, what is even more difficult than losing your kid is literally having a child who is making you hate your life due to the actions, the convictions, whatever. I've seen too many situations, too many parents. That's a very common thing in the Muslim world anyway. As in, people say, I wish I had a kid who's more righteous, who's not causing me this, who's causing me that. I wish you were dead. I wish he was. Things that are very common. But immediately, how did they react to that? Immediately, that's again, patience it speaks to patience. By the end of the day, everyone who is involved here needs to have patience. The fishermen. Also the Quran is silent on how the fishermen reacted to that. Maybe it wasn't that obvious even. Was it obvious? Was that an obvious damage to the ship? We don't know. Did they have much respect to Al-Khadr that they couldn't even raise a word against him? We don't know. But yes, maybe it was in the same day that they realized, or 2 days, a couple of days. Patience, again. Much of this is to do with patience, indeed. Yes, yeah.
The idea of not taking things like easy seeing at face value, sort of, and vice versa, like maybe you see something in you, like you mentioned, you have like immediate thoughts on it. You maybe think of yourself as better when you wouldn't do this or stuff like this. But even just in general, like you see something and you have your thoughts on it, instead of like, you should look at other sort of what people say, other sources, other information, what the other people are saying about it. And you can sort of then make your decision, not go like your opinion on it, not just like have it with your convictions and be like, yeah, this is, from what I see, this is not great, but like it's sort of face value without looking around it.
Indeed. Widen your perspective and not becoming so rigid on a specific viewpoint or something. Indeed. Any other thoughts before we move? Yes, yeah. Any thoughts from the sister side or my? Yes, yeah.
It's a question.
Yeah. Let's go with reflections first. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. You guys should trust your teachers, guys.
Oh, no. They're like, especially if you like know that this person is like, guided by God and has knowledge, but also like in general learning, can't really learn someone that you don't fully.
Sure, absolutely. That's that simple point, but very, very central. Very central. He's a teacher. She's a teacher for a good reason. Some good trust needs to be there. That's what Al-Khadr was trying to teach Musa alayhi salam. Be patient. You've accepted that I am more knowledgeable, or at least more knowledgeable on that dimension. Be patient with me. Sometimes again we interrupt our own learning process. Learning takes time, takes ages. One of the key things that I would often face in my own the programs I teach and this and that would be good students asking very advanced questions. They will be naturally answered at the end of the program, but they want them answered now. How can I do that? Like even if I provide the answers now, you might not really benefit from the most. So patience is part and parcel of the learning process. Absolutely. And if you look at this passage, the word patience is repeated several times. Alaykum salam. Other points? Yes.
The idea of humility was said he was willing after he made like one error, or like by asking him, he was like, no, allow me to continue with you, like I want to continue with you, and forgive me sort of my previous mistake, and then he did it again, he's like, please let me continue again, it's like, you humble yourself down and you sort of like accept that you made a mistake and you want to continue the process. And you want to
Absolutely. 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 Again, Moses, that speaks to the idea of resilience, like resilience on the resistance and the resilience on seeking knowledge. And just put yourself in Moses' position, like seeing all those things happen in front of your own eyes. It's not an easy thing, and yet Moses is trying his hardest. Yeah, absolutely.
I was just thinking that, after the first incident, I'd probably leave. If I stay for the second, then I'd definitely leave at the second. There's no way I'm going to wait for the third.
What is
But even, you have to be more,
Yeah,
you have to be
that's true.
perfect.
That's true.
You can push.
That's true. That's why, subhanAllah, indeed, the Quran does not say, in the third time, he doesn't say, I forgot. I have the condition in mind, but this is beyond me. Yeah, I can understand. Indeed.
And
Indeed.
also, as Amr said, it is a two-sided story. It's the story of Moses and Al-Khadr, and then there are three other stories on the other side of three different people.
Absolutely.
And all of them were rewarded in a way, and I put myself in their shoes, as in, every day I see my sinking ship, and I'm like, is it going to be okay? Is it going? Should I continue?
That's an amazing
to
reflection.
wish for
That is
better
an amazing reflection.
future, and
You see, there are, as Muhammad is saying, that there are three other stories in the story. The story of the fishermen, how did they respond? The story of the parents, and the story of the people of that city, of the village. Amr's point. There is it's not. I don't think it's an authentic tradition. It is not an authentic tradition, but it does exist in our books here, in the Islamic tradition. It says basically that the people of that village who denied hospitality to Moses and Al-Khadr, they came to the Prophet ﷺ, after ages, hundreds of years. They came to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. They believed it was in their village that this had happened. They came to the Prophet ﷺ, asking him to change one letter in the story. And that letter is فانطلقا حتى إذا فأبوا أن يضيفوهما. They said to the Prophet, if you may change the letter ba to make it فأتوا أن يضيفوهما, to mean they came all the way to host him. Be very thankful to you. Otherwise, people, up to this very moment, they think very bad of us. how did those people react to that story, to the war that has been repaired and this and that? Okay, that literally speaks to the idea of how Allah tests us. You know, we had a holistic discussion on Surah Al-Kahf. We said that the essence of it is to do with al-fitan, the tests that Allah tests us with. When it comes to those testing, the Prophet ﷺ often told us, يُبْتَلَى الْمَرْءُ عَلَى قَدْرِ دِينِهِ. You know, Amr ibn As, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, sorry, said, Ya Rasulullah, you know, what is the Islamic philosophy of ibtila? What is, you know, أَيُّ النَّاسِ أَشَدُّ بَلَاءً? Who is the most severely tested of all people? Sa'd expects the Prophet ﷺ to say, you know, it is the ones who are most sinning and this and that. Actually, this is no. أَشَدُّ النَّاسِ بَلَاءً الْأَنْبِيَاء. The most severely tested are the prophets. ثُمَّ الْأَوْلِيَاء. And then the fillers of God or the friends of God. ثُمَّ الْأَمْثَلْ فَالْأَمْثَلْ. Then the next best and the next best. Apply this to this scenario. We have a people, we have someone who is in the middle of this test. Musa alayhi salam. Who gets to see all those tests. 3 big tests. Especially the one with the kid being killed. He has to grapple with this. And we have people who are on the fringes, on the margins of this. You know, the guys with the shit, the fishermen, who are on the margins of this test. We have the parents of that kid. Musa alayhi salam is immediately experiencing this. You know, those parents, they could have been told, you know what, we don't know what the kid is. They are not sure whether he was killed or not. They don't literally know. Right? They haven't seen it, but Moses had seen it. He's a prophet, sees an innocent kid being killed. To me, he is even more tested in this than his parents, than the kid's parents. The point I'm trying to make, when it comes to testing, Allah tests people. The severity of the test goes hand in hand with the depth of the faith. There are people whose test would be very, very marginal because their faith is so, you know, not that great. And we'll have someone who is in the midst of it. Musa alayhi salam. How does he react to that? Speaking to the idea of testing again and ibtila, al-fitan. Ayham, you had a question. So it's not, I mean, unless if it's
Yeah, maybe just
okay.
in terms of sources, do you know like a book that perhaps spoke some of the hadith around the text?
Mm.
Around the Quran, الحديث اللي كان في حصل بيصير بخبر موسى. Was there a book that يعني brought these conversations together? Although it might not be very authentic, but might give us even more context.
I'm pretty sure there is. I'm happy to share some of those. I don't know myself, like I don't know specific books, but I'm happy to. Somewhat, I vaguely remember Asyuti writing a book on this. But I know the hadith that are there in various books of hadith. The story is mentioned in details in Bukhari and in Muslim as well. And bits and pieces across the other collections of hadith. But a book that compiles all this, I think Al-Asyuti has one. I look into it, inshallah. Yeah. Yes. On.
Is a prophet, like, and if so, is he one of the least mentioned prophets?
I mean, I said earlier, we don't really know. Some scholars, I'm more inclined towards the position that he's a prophet. But there is not a single thing, an indication. Some scholars say he's a prophet, others say it's just a fellow of God. Actually, some said he's an angel, so we don't really know for a fact who he is.
I just find it interesting, like, Musa alayhi salam was one of the most mentioned.
Yeah.
Learning from someone, learning the nature.
Yeah. That's another beautiful observation. Someone who is unnamed, even. Musa, who is the most mentioned prophet in the Quran, more than 125 times. Getting to learn, you know, in English you say, I am a nobody, like someone who's no one, you don't know him. And Musa alayhi salam, with his history, with his background, with his biography, is coming to learn from no one. Nobody, a nobody, literally. Indeed, humility again. Yes, we come. Mm. Mm. Indeed. I mean, with my reservations on the term slave, the word abd, whenever it's mentioned in the Quran, it does not necessarily mean slave. It does not even necessarily mean servant. Abd in the Quran mostly should be translated as worshipper. One of our worshippers, alaykum salam wa rahmatullah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came to define what al-ihsan is, he said, "An ta'bud Allah ka'annaka tarah." He says, it is what you worship Allah as if you see Him. It does not. You can't translate that as if you become a slave of Allah as if you see Him. The word, the concept of slavery in our own imagination today and the pre-modern imagination of it is a very negative term. The word servant carries with it certain connotations. You wouldn't want to associate that because our relationship with Allah is much more dignified than being slaves and much more being servants, in the sense that being a servant, it literally means you are the one who is providing a service to someone else, right? Are we providing a service to Allah? We are not. He's the one who showered us with millions of things. But what we worship, a worshipper is a lover. You love Allah. And actually in the Arabic tradition, when you say to someone, actually one of the expressions of intimacy in the past, in the pre-modern societies, they do use the word. If you say to someone, "Ana a'buduka," it means I love you. It could, one of the meanings, it means literally I love you. So, yeah. But yeah, it's a good point indeed. Abdam and everything is one of our worshippers. Any other points before we? Yes, please.
I'm just thinking that when you mentioned that Musa was the most mentioned prophet in the Quran, I was just thinking to myself that how this kind of emphasizes how humble Musa was. It kind of shows that anyone can be humble. It doesn't matter if you're the most mentioned.
Sure. Indeed. But when you are someone who comes from a very dignified background, what happens? You are more likely to become, at least complacent or satisfied with what you have. But the fact that he, despite his background, the amount of knowledge that he has, he's still willing to learn. Not just to learn, to change perspectives. That's a big thing. Think about adaptation, adaptability. It's a really big thing. Actually, our own situation is a good lesson of this. The skill of adaptation. Think of this life skill, adaptation or adaptability. So much can be read into that. Inshallah, we'll continue next week. Unless if you have any comments or questions. Subhanakallah. Yes. No worries.
At the end of the last building the wall thing, did Musa still want to learn, or did he kind of accept and if he still wanted to learn, it's a bit sad that it gets cut off,
Okay, that's a good question. We haven't been told, but from what we know about Moses, I think he would be more eager to learn. If Al-Khadr really gave him another chance, he would have wanted to continue. Especially that now things are getting a little bit more brighter. He's fixing a wall. He's not killing anyone. So you become a little bit more positive, yeah. And remember, he has the divine command in the background. Allah said to him, there is one. So there is that linkage that is there. But we haven't been told how he responded to that. Allahu A'lam. Well, that's a good question.
it's just sad that it has to end.
Mm.
And when someone's eager to learn, when you have disagreements, to cut it off.
Mm.
I don't know, is there a lesson in that, or even when you disagree, if you disagree enough, there is a point where it's
Did end.
Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of sad. It's not up there. Unless you know,
What is the lesson? Oh.
like three strikes and you're out. And that's it. That kind of lesson.
No, I don't think.
When you do what you do at the end,
Of course he is.
Yeah.
So you're not saying, just to make sure I get you right, you're not saying Musa was uninterested.
No, I'm saying if he was interested, I think he is.
He definitely was interested, surely.
But it's just sad that it has to cut off.
Yeah, sure. Thank you again. You raised some really interesting points tonight, Ani, mashallah. Stay like that. In our, learning is a linear process. It should have no stop, no tipping point. Actually, one of the key, axiomatic statements we have in our tradition, من المهدي إلى اللحد, العلم من المهدي إلى اللحد. You seek knowledge from, being a baby, from the time of being a baby to until you die, literally. You should be willing to really change perspectives and learn and unlearn and this and that. At no point you should, you should say, this is it, I've learned more than enough, I should become a teacher or something. I don't think Musa was like that. He was definitely willing. He just needed some explanation. And again, I want to end with this, with what we've started in the previous episode, as in another perspective, another dimension of this story is to think of Musa wal-Khadr literally as in our relationship with al-Qada wal-Qadar, as in that al-Khadr represents al-Qadar, our destiny, and Musa represents us, how impatient we are with al-Qadr. Even though al-Qadr comes from Allah's side, we know that Allah is looking after us. Musa knows that al-Qadr is commanded by Allah to do whatever he does. And yet, even though we believe Allah is wise, Allah does whatever is good for us and this and that, we still resist. We still want to take the lead. That is something that we should probably think with as well. Inshallah, we'll continue next week, probably with the fourth and the last story in this beautiful surah, which is Dhil Qarnayn, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك صلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد.
مباركا أينما كنت وأوصاني